Walk me through a day in the life of Dr. Perlmutter. What you're eating, when you're eating, for your microglia.
So I generally do not eat until at least noon and sometimes thereafter. And typically, um, though I will have coffee in the morning, I will have, and does that mean I've already broken my fast? That's a matter of debate, but I don't see any real changes in blood sugar or anything like that from a cup of coffee. But that said, I don't eat until 12 or 1. That's after I've been to the gym. I am pretty well convinced that my workouts would be better if I had eaten prior to, if I'd had some protein, some eggs, or who knows what prior to going to the gym. I probably would have a better workout. But what I want to do is compress my eating window between 12 and let's say 7 p.m., such that then I have from 8 p.m. at the latest, when I finish eating, generally it's much earlier than that, until noon or 1 the next day. That's basically fasting each day, or more commonly called time-restricted eating. I've restricted eating to a time-restricted window between 12 or 1 p.m. and then finishing at 7 to 7:30 p.m. as well. What do I break my fast with? Strangely, I don't have a big break fast, and that is it can be a can of sustainably harvested tuna. Today, it was actually mixed with one of my favorite foods, which is coleslaw. Whatever. Don't ask me why. I don't know where it came from. Or I can mix it with pistachio nuts, olive oil, and sometimes some vegetable-based mayonnaise. The only reason I do that is because a lot of times the animal-based mayonnaise tends to be sweetened with extra sugar. So that's what I have. And it's very strange because when I have breakfast, I'm not really that hungry, but I do it because I know that by afternoon time I'm going to be hungry and get a little, as I say, light in the loafers. And that doesn't serve me well when I'm on your podcast or whatever, academic work I have to do. I have to have my head engaged and brain engaged. And that's why it's good to have some food on board. That's going to take my supplements, which are many. But, the never fail supplements are high levels of fish oil, creatine, monohydrate, iron, which is a particular thing for me, a B complex vitamin that is methylated. Again, that's specific for me. Coenzyme Q10, vitamin K2, urolithin A, and a product called Cardigenics and a product called Vasconox that are, again, I think somewhat unique for me. And vitamin D, multivitamin, multimineral, and that's, and berberine. So that's my supplement list. The big players that do not miss are the fish oil and the creatine. I also take a product called Himalayan tartary buckwheat. We talked just a moment ago about polyphenols. That is by far and away the most polyphenol-rich food, I think, on the planet. So I'm a huge fan. There's actually a study that came out now 2 years ago that looked at these epigenetic clocks that we talked about earlier, measuring biological age. And this was an interventional trial in which the intervention group used that product and showed a dramatic slowing of their rate of biological aging by around 40%. And so I'm a big believer in that. What do I drink in the course of the day? I drink a lot of water. I do drink some bubbly soda that is unsweetened, has a little bit of flavoring in it. I might have a second cup of coffee midday, but not after 2 p.m. Though I will have, sometimes at dinner, a little bit of dark chocolate. That's caffeine, right? We have to recognize that. I do have that sometimes at dinner. Not often, but every once in a while I want to do that. And I want to say that I'm not perfect. And I think back last week, my wife and I went out to dinner, and I ordered this pasta dish, and I enjoyed every bit of it. It was wonderful. So, yeah, and that's not an ideal food for controlling blood sugar, but that just was great. And I'm here to say I enjoyed every bit of it. So, I think it's important for people to understand you do the best you can, but every once in a while, why have this inner conflict? I could have chosen the right thing, and maybe I did. Maybe that was the right thing because it was a great moment. Alcohol for us at this point in life is minimal to none. My messaging outgoing was 2 glasses of wine is okay for a man per day, 1 glass of wine or drink for a woman per day is okay. But I think the newer data makes it very clear that, call it what you will, alcohol is a neurotoxin, so you don't really want to do it. Is there a place for that glass of red wine from time to time in a social setting? Of course there is. But there is alcohol-free wine and beer out there if you so desire. So finished dinner around 7 o'clock at night, 7:30, and then I use a water pick every night. In addition to brushing my teeth, I use the water pick. That is the signal to me that I'm not going to eat anymore. I never violate. Once I've water picked my teeth, that's it. That seals the deal. Now, getting back to what the morning looks like, so I'm usually up by 6:45 or 7 p.m., a.m. rather, and but no later than about 7:15. And then I get up and either if it's resistance training, weight training, or machine training, that's a trip to the gym, which is fortunately very nearby. That's 3 days a week. And then the other days, almost without fail, except if I'm traveling, would be some form of aerobics, which would be running or elliptical machine, or more recently, a stationary bike called an Averon, which is just for me the cat's meow because it's gamified. Everything I do on that bike is a game, and I'm playing against other people. And that, I want to do well. Don't always win, but and just so you're watching the other people's performance and your performance, and the next thing you know, 30, 45 minutes have gone by, and you're drenched in sweat, and you went, God, I really enjoyed that. As opposed to either, I listened to a podcast on the bike or the elliptical, that's less engaging for me, and I'm still watching the clock. But when it's gamified, I want to pay strict attention. So, and let me just say one other thing to answer the lifestyle question, and that is, people talk about, well, what's most important? Is it aerobics? Is it strength training? And I say neither of the above and all the above. Meaning that it's neither the above, it's not just those two, neither one of the above, it's 3. I think flexibility is really important, and you could add to that balance training as well. I actually did that this morning. Flexibility, really important, because once you injure yourself because you didn't stretch ahead of time, then you don't exercise and you're going to sit around, probably eat the wrong foods. We all know what that looks like. And balance training, there are various techniques that you can engage. I think there's a yoga pose where I think it's called eagle, where you're on one leg, the other leg's wrapped behind, and your hands are this way. And try doing that and then closing your eyes. That'll challenge your proprioceptive part of your nervous system. I think that's really very important. But I also, and again, I think that these are important adjuncts to the idea of both aerobics and strength training. A recent study came out that really tried to tease apart, well, which one is it? And the answer is it's both. It turns out that people who do both strength training, resistance training, along with something aerobic, turns out to be the best thing we can be doing for our brains. And is that working through the microglia? I think so.
I was going to ask about that. Different forms of exercise, making the direct connection to the transformation of M1 to M2. Do we have any data there?
As far as the intervention, the exercise intervention, the type of
connecting
M1
it to brain health
there's
and
no
the
specific data
microglia.
on that yet. I think that what we're going to see is this TSPO imaging of the activated microglia being used to determine what is the effect of a dietary intervention on the amount of M1 microglia that we have, or exercise intervention, or a drug intervention for that matter. So I think as a research tool, we're going to see that much more widely applied, and that's really going to help us understand where are we getting the best bang for the buck.
You went over an extensive array of supplements there. You take them at lunch, correct?
I do. Well,
Okay.
Lunch or breakfast, you call it, because that
When you break
I
your
don't
fast.
eat between whatever you call that meal. It's lunch by virtue of the fact that it's that time of day, but it's breakfast because That's when I break fast. There are a couple of other things that I do take that are microglia specific, and that's dihydromyricetin and something called rosmarinic acid. Dihydromyricetin and rosmarinic acid. Those have been actually studied in terms of laboratory evaluation, what they can do to keep microglia in M2. So, these are some really novel, kind of neat new things that are coming down the supplement pike, especially urolithin A. You're quite familiar with that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What an interesting supplement. That we would have gotten some urolithin A in our bodies by virtue of eating certain foods like strawberries or pomegranate, and then converting a precursor using our gut bacteria into active the urolithins, including urolithin A. It's an interesting story, isn't it? That this was always there for us. Now we can get it in much higher concentration in a pill form and not have to rely on our gut bacteria.
I'm curious on your creatine dosage. Lately in our world, there's been a lot of talk of higher dosage related to the brain. What are you taking? How much?
Let me comment on the brain study first of all. So the study was an interventional trial in early Alzheimer's patients, and their dosage was actually 10 grams twice a day with really interesting results. The most interesting, from my perspective, was not their what they saw in terms of cognitive function, but was the increased amount of creatine in the brains. Having said that, my dosage is between 5 and 10 grams a day, tending more towards a higher dosage. I find that I'd like to split that up between morning and evening, however, when I go to 5 grams twice a day.
The other one I was curious about is fish oil. What type, what dosage?
So I take around 2.5 grams of fish oil a day. That's from the product that I take. It's actually 2,400 milligrams. That's a tablespoon of liquid. And I take one that's very high in DHA. It's called DR formulated, doctor formulated, made by a company called Garden of Life. There are other good brands out there as well. That's one that I take. Important that you keep fish oil refrigerated. That's key. That's key. And also, I think to be more personalized about it, anyone who has any sense that their microbiome is dysfunctional is well served by taking a high quality probiotic.
You made it to the end of this clip, which means you're going to love the full episode. Head on over here to watch, and I'll see you over there.
These are the cells called the microglial cells that are taking the front of the stage now, because when they go south, it sets the stage for every type of brain degenerative condition that you could think of. When our blood sugar is elevated,